Hi, my name is Bibek Adhikari. I am a English instructor. In today's class, we are going to learn the grammar portion of Unit 2, that is prepositions. In this class, we shall be learning about the three different kinds of prepositions. So, let's begin. We are now going to start the grammar portion of Unit 2. And in this section, we shall be learning about something called prepositions. Before beginning, let us understand what prepositions are. So what are prepositions? Prepositions are in fact Prepositions are words placed before a noun or a pronoun to show in what relation the person or thing denoted by it stands in regard to something else. Alright? So to define prepositions, we must understand that prepositions are in fact words and they are placed before a noun or a pronoun. So remember, it's either a noun or a pronoun. So a noun or a pronoun to show in what relation the person or thing denoted by it we mean preposition, stands in regard to something else. So let me demonstrate this by writing a couple of examples. For example, I can write something like this. I can write the bird is in the cage, or I can write something like cat jumped off the window. And when I write sentences like these, the word that is just before the noun. So where's the noun? The cage is the noun again. So word before the noun. The window is the noun again. So words that are placed just before the noun, so that, there is some kind of relationship that is shown by that word. So those words are what we called prepositions. So preposition in fact comes from two words, prepositions. That means that which is placed before. So pre means before, position means place. So something that is placed before is called preposition. In these examples, the words in and of are the examples of prepositions. Moving on, let's talk about some of the uses of prepositions. First, I'm going to say that preposition is usually placed before its object. But sometimes, so let's talk about the exception, but sometimes it follows the object. So if that does not make any sense to you, do not panic. I'm going to write a couple of examples. The first example that I shall write is something like this. I can say something, what are you looking at? Or I can write another example, a similar example, what are you thinking of? What are you thinking of? So in these two examples, you see the preposition is in fact placed at the end of the question. That means instead of the general rule where the preposition is placed before its object, here the preposition is placed after its object. So what are you looking at? What are you looking at? So the preposition in fact follows the object. Alright, so this is one of the common use. So let's say this is the only one common use. Alright, I'm going to now I'm going to talk about some of the types of prepositions. I should be talking about the types, and the prepositions can be divided into three different categories, and they are, so number A is what we call simple prepositions, number B is compound prepositions, and finally the last kind of preposition that we have is phrasal prepositions. So these three distinct kind of prepositions are what we shall be talking about in detail. Now let us talk about these three different kind of prepositions. I shall be writing some examples, and by that example I shall be going to demonstrate the different kind of uses of these three prepositions. The simple prepositions are in fact pretty simple, because words like at, by, for, from, in, of, on, out, through, till, to, up, with are the examples of simple prepositions. Now the example of compound prepositions are about, above, across, along, amidst, among, around, before, behind, below. So these are some of the examples. Obviously, I cannot write all the examples there, but other examples could be beneath, beside, between, beyond, inside, outside, underneath, within, without. So those are the examples. Now let's talk about phrasal prepositions. And in phrasal prepositions, we must be very careful about this. These are the words used with the force of simple preposition. Keep this in mind. So phrasal prepositions are in fact used with the force of single preposition. For example, when we say, when we use, words like according to, or along with, or by way of, or in spite of, or in order to. So these are what we call the phrasal prepositions. So prepositions are usually put before the words they control, right? And they show the relationships of different kinds, the commonest being of space, position, time, and various mental attitudes. The general way of understanding, or more like remembering these different kind of preposition, is simple prepositions are in fact one word, or you can call it monosyllabic, because all the different words that are used here are in fact one syllable long. So they are monosyllabic prepositions. And the compound prepositions have two syllables. For example, about has two different syllables. Abob also has two different syllables. A is one syllable, bout is another. Abob. So these prepositions are also called disyllabic preposition. And the last one, the phrasal preposition, have three or more syllables. For example, the word along with has in fact three different syllables, so that's why it's called polysyllabic prepositions. To say things in a simple way, this is monosyllabic, this is disyllabic, and finally this is polysyllabic. So these are in fact the types of prepositions. Now let me talk about prepositions, the types based on their functions. So these are the types based on structure. So we were more or less concerned about the structure. Alright, so we were interested in structure. Now the prepositions can be divided into, for now, two distinct categories based on their forms. According to forms of function, I'm going to divide preposition into two major classes. The first one is what we call prepositions of place. And the second one is prepositions of motion. Alright, let's write some examples first. Prepositions of place would have words like at, on, in, over, under, above, below, between, or among. And the prepositions of motion would naturally take words like over, along, through, across. So these are some of the examples. Now let's find out whether these examples are either simple prepositions or compound prepositions, or the polysyllabic, the phrasal prepositions. So these words have only one syllable, that's why they are called simple prepositions. These words have two syllables, so they are compound prepositions. Again, a compound preposition. Over has two syllables, along has two syllables, through is one syllable, across is one syllable. So this is something different. Apart from that, everything is compound, while through is a simple preposition. So it's a combination of simple prepositions and compound prepositions. Right? Now let's study about these prepositions in different examples. Alright, let's study about the prepositions of place by using different kind of diagrams. Let's look at the first diagram here. So in this diagram we can see that the yellow dot is somewhere at the box. So we would say at. You can say Ram is standing at the gate, or I was at the school. That does not mean you were in the school, but you were somewhere outside the school, right? So at is used in such cases. So at is here. So when something is, if you look at the second picture, when something is on the top of something, we use the word on. We say something is on something, right? And look at the third one. In the third example, we can see the dot is actually inside, so we use in. The fourth example, the dot is somewhere. The first dot is in fact over the second one, while the second dot is under the first one. So we can say 1 is over 2, or 2 is under 1. If we look at another example, we can see actually two dots, and the two dots are in fact above and below. And this is particularly tricky because we need to find the difference between, over and above and under and below. Over is when something is exactly 90 degree. Over is when something is exactly 90 degree. Like if you look here, these two things are more or less can be connected by a straight line, and they are perpendicular. So one is over 2 and 2 is under 1. But if we look at these two dots, we can join them diagonally. So we can say this first dot is in fact somewhere above the second dot, while the second dot is somewhere below the first one. When things are perpendicularly separated, we use words like over and under to describe about the position. But when things are not so, perpendicular, or they are rather deviated, they are not exactly perpendicular, and we are going to use above and below. And if you look at another example, you'll in fact find a big large dot somewhere between. So what's the word? Between is the word, somewhere between two things. And finally, if you look at this one, a single dot is among various hashes. So something is among something else. So these are what we call the prepositions of place. So prepositions of place. So let's study these examples, these diagrams. The first diagram has something of an obstacle in between, and someone is actually jumping over. So we use the word over. The boy ran over the wall. I jumped over the fence. When the bull began to run towards me, I jumped over the wall. Second picture has an arrow going straight through the circle. So we use the word through. All right. And the third one, there's something, the horizontal lines are there and the arrow is flowing along that direction. So we use the word along. And finally, the arrow moves right across from one vertex diagonally through one vertex to the opposite vertex on another side. So these prepositions are what we call the prepositions of motion. Prepositions of motion. Now let's solve some of the questions from the book, and after that we shall be dealing about some homework. Section 2. Let's go and do some exercises. The first one, I'll copy the question from the book. The bike stopped, blank space, the traffic. Okay, I forgot the word traffic lights. The options here are at and on. Let me copy another question. The notice is posted, blank space, the wall. The options are in and on. So let's try these two questions. The bike stopped on the traffic or at the traffic. So remember the box. So if this was the box, where was the dot? The dot was somewhere here. So the bike stopped at the traffic lights. The notice is posted. So remember the box again. There was something like this, and when something is on something, dot is somewhere like this. So we are going to use the word on. The notice is posted on the wall. Let me copy two more examples. There's a little water, blank space, the glass. And the answer to that would be in or at. Another structure is number D. The fan is just dash the bed. The answer options to that question is on and over. So let's try solving these. There's a little water in the glass. Something is inside, so we use the word in. The fan is just over the bed because it's perpendicular, 90 degree. Alright, let me give you some homework. The homework for today's class would only be 3 questions. The first one is, the boy's head is blank space, the water. And the answer to that question would be over/above. Let me give you another question. Number B. The dog is hiding blank space, the bushes. The answer to that is among or between. Moving on. The plane is flying blank space, the mountains, and the possible options to that would be on followed by over. So these are the questions you need to solve. And there are some more questions in your book. If you actually go to page number 15 of the book, you would find 9 more questions, followed by a little writing exercise somewhere. I think you can do that. So with this, we have come to end of today's class. If you have any questions or suggestions regarding these video series, feel free to write us at learning@deerwalk.edu.np. Thank you.